I was a faithful wife until I wasn't. It started with something innocent, a simple suggestion from my husband, James. "Babe, I think you should try the gym. It'll be good for you," he had said one evening, scrolling through his phone while I stood in front of the mirror, pinching at my waist. I wasn't out of shape, not really, but marriage had made me comfortable. Too comfortable. The late night dinners, the weekend takeouts, the wine with every meal, it all started to show. And I could see it in James's eyes, even if he never said anything outright. So I agreed. That's how I met Ryan. I expected an older, professional-looking trainer, someone who would count my reps and lecture me on protein intake. Instead, I got him. Ryan was dangerous. Not in a bad guy kind of way, but in a way that made my heart race the moment I saw him. He was tall, muscular, and carried himself with a confidence that made me feel exposed. He had dark, piercing eyes that locked onto mine when he introduced himself, his grip firm, lingering just a second too long. "You're Minna?" he asked, his voice deep, smooth. I nodded, feeling strangely nervous. "Great. We're gonna have fun," he said, flashing a grin that felt more like a promise than a statement. The first few sessions were tough. Ryan didn't go easy on me, but he had a way of pushing without making it feel like punishment. "Come on, Minna. Give me one more," he'd say, standing close behind me as I struggled with squats. His voice was low, coaxing, making my breath hitch in ways that had nothing to do with the workout. And the touching, it was never inappropriate, at least not at first. A hand on my lower back to correct my posture, fingers grazing my arms as he adjusted my stance. His breath warm on my skin when he leaned in to whisper encouragement. I told myself it was nothing, that I was just being paranoid. But my body didn't agree. Because every time he touched me, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. It happened on a Wednesday. I had just finished a brutal set of lunges, sweat dripping down my spine, my legs burning. I collapsed onto the bench, groaning. "Good work," Ryan said, handing me a towel. I reached for it, but he didn't let go immediately. Our fingers brushed. I looked up, and for the first time, I saw it, that look in his eyes. Not professional, not friendly. It was gone in a blink, so fast I almost convinced myself I imagined it, but my stomach flipped, and suddenly I was hyper aware of how close he was, how good he smelled, how my body was reacting to his presence. I should have stepped away. I should have reminded myself that I was a married woman. Instead, I just sat there, gripping that towel like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. "You okay?" he asked, smirking. "Yeah," I lied. But deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't just a fitness journey anymore. It was something else, something dangerous. And I was already too far in to stop it. I tried to resist it. I really did. The attraction to Ryan was undeniable, but I convinced myself that it was just a phase. I told myself I was just in a bad place, a place where James was busy with work, leaving me feeling isolated. The gym, the workouts, Ryan's presence, it was just an escape, right? But deep down, I knew I was lying. Ryan was a professional. He knew his boundaries. He never pushed too far. But there was a way he looked at me, a way he spoke to me, that made it impossible for me to ignore the simmering tension between us. I started looking forward to my training sessions more than I should have. I'd find myself planning my day around them, taking extra care to look good when I walked into the gym. I noticed how my heart raced every time Ryan greeted me with that smile of his, that glint in his eyes that made everything else fade into the background. At first, I thought it was just about the workouts, the physical challenge, the way Ryan helped me get stronger, faster, more toned. But as the days passed, I realized that what I was really looking forward to wasn't the sweat, the burn in my muscles, or the sense of accomplishment. It was the way Ryan made me feel alive. And the guilt, it was always there, lurking in the background. James had been working more and more lately. Long hours at the office, traveling for business, late nights at meetings. I understood, of course. I was proud of him. But the truth was, his absence left a hole in our marriage that I didn't know how to fill. When he was home, we barely talked. His mind was always somewhere else. On work, on the next big deal, on the things that didn't have anything to do with me. He'd come home, exhausted, slump into the couch, and that was the end of our conversation. I started to feel invisible, like I didn't matter. And that's when Ryan came into the picture. One day, Ryan pulled me aside after a workout. "Hey, Minna, the gym's getting a bit crowded, and I was thinking maybe you'd like to do a private session. It'll be more personal, and we can really focus on your goals." It seemed harmless enough. I was used to the personal attention in class. But this was different. More one-on-one. And it was tempting. Too tempting. He suggested we meet at his place, a gym he had set up in his garage. It sounded reasonable. After all, the gym was getting crowded, and I didn't want to be distracted. Ryan had been professional, respectful, and accommodating every step of the way. This would be no different, right? I arrived at Ryan's house, a nice suburban place on the outskirts of town. His gym was in the garage, fully equipped, well-maintained, and private. I could tell it was his pride and joy. "You're looking great, Minna. I think you're really starting to see some progress," Ryan said as he opened the door, his voice as smooth as always. I smiled. I had been working hard. The session started innocently enough. A few stretches, some light weights, but soon Ryan was pushing me harder than ever. His movements were smooth, calculated, almost like he knew exactly how far to push me without making it too obvious. Then it happened. As I lifted a heavy dumbbell, I lost my balance and stumbled forward. Ryan was right there, catching me in his arms. His touch was firm and warm, and for the briefest moment, we were locked in a moment of stillness. My heart raced. I could feel the heat from his body. His breath was warm against my neck as he whispered, "You're doing great. Just trust me." And then, without thinking, I leaned into him. It was just a tiny shift, a moment of weakness, but it was enough. The intensity in his eyes grew. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. "Yeah," I whispered, my voice shaky. I pulled away quickly, trying to ignore the electric current running through my veins. But it was too late. The line had been crossed. After a few more sets, I was sweating, exhausted, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between us. Ryan seemed more relaxed, more confident, and I couldn't help but feel the tension building again. As we wrapped up the session, Ryan handed me a towel and pulled me in close to give me a brief hug. The hug was too long, too intimate, and when he pulled away, he whispered in my ear, "You've got more potential than you know, Minna. I can help you unlock it." The way he said it, there was no mistaking what he meant. And my heart, it was pounding in my chest. On the drive home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking a very dangerous line. I had betrayed James's trust in the smallest of ways. I had allowed Ryan's touch to linger a little too long. But deep down, I knew something far more dangerous was unfolding between us. The guilt hit me harder than ever, but there was a part of me, the part that had been starved for attention, for touch, for something that didn't want to stop, and that part was growing stronger. I wish I could say I stopped it, that I pulled back, reset, and went back to being the devoted wife I was supposed to be. But I didn't, because once you've tasted temptation, once you've allowed it to wrap its fingers around you, whispering promises of something new, something forbidden, it's almost impossible to turn away. I didn't stop. I let it happen, and that was the biggest mistake of my life. After that night at Ryan's private gym, something shifted between us. He started texting me, not just about workouts, but late at night, sending messages that were just vague enough to be innocent, but just suggestive enough to keep me up thinking about them. Thinking about our next session, Minna. I have something special planned for you. You're getting stronger every day. I love watching your progress. Bet you're sore from yesterday. Next time, I'll be gentle, unless you prefer it rough. I knew what was happening. I knew exactly what these words meant. But instead of shutting it down, I found myself waiting for him. I was craving it. It didn't take long before we were finding excuses to be alone. Extra sessions, special training routines. At first, it was just subtle touches. His fingers grazing my waist when he adjusted my form, the way his hands lingered when he spotted me during squats. But it escalated fast. Too fast. It wasn't some grand romantic moment. There were no roses, no drawn-out declarations of love. It was sweaty, breathless, desperate. One night, after an intense session, we found ourselves alone in the gym storage room. Ryan closed the door, and for the first time, there were no more barriers between us. He kissed me, and I didn't stop him. I didn't want to stop him. My whole body burned with a hunger I hadn't felt in years. And in that moment, nothing else existed. Not James, not my marriage, not my guilt, just Ryan, his lips, his hands, the way he pulled me against him like he had been waiting for this just as much as I had. That night was just the beginning. Once you cross the line, it's impossible to go back. Ryan and I became reckless, addicted. Every training session was an excuse to touch, to steal moments, to disappear into the gym's back rooms for minutes that felt like stolen eternity. And at home, I played the role of the perfect wife. I still made dinner, still kissed James when he got home, still pretended that I was the same woman he had married. But I wasn't. Not anymore. Because every time I lay next to him in bed, my mind was somewhere else. With Ryan. And the worst part, James didn't suspect a thing. At least, not yet. At first, I thought I was being careful, that I could juggle both sides of my life without slipping. But then James started noticing things. You've been spending a lot of time at the gym, he mentioned one evening, watching me from across the dinner table. I forced a smile. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Ryan's been helping me push myself. That was the first mistake. Saying Ryan's name out loud. So casually. Like it was normal for me to talk about another man with that kind of ease. James's brow furrowed slightly. Ryan, huh? You seem different, happier, more energetic. I laughed it off, dismissing it as the effects of working out. But deep down I knew. He was starting to see it. The small changes, the way I carried myself, the way I dressed, the sudden bursts of energy that came not from the gym, but from the high of sneaking around, and I should have stopped. That was my second chance to turn back. But I didn't, because I was in too deep. One night, after a particularly intense session with Ryan, I came home later than usual. I had barely stepped inside when James's voice cut through the room. "Where have you been?" I froze. "The gym," I said quickly, forcing a casual smile. James was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, his eyes scanning me. At this time, it's almost 10. I swallowed. I hadn't realized how late it was. Yeah, I lost track of time. Ryan wanted me to try a new routine. Another mistake, another mention of his name. James's jaw tightened. "You know, Minna, I was thinking maybe I should come with you one day. See what these workouts are all about." My stomach dropped. I forced a laugh, shaking my head. "You hate the gym, babe. You always say it's a waste of time. Maybe I changed my mind." His voice was even, but his eyes were sharp. I felt like a deer caught in headlights. "You don't trust me?" I asked, my voice softer now, playing the innocent card. James exhaled, shaking his head. "Of course I trust you. It's just, something feels off. Something feels off." The words echoed in my head for the rest of the night. Because James was right. Something was off, and if I wasn't careful, he was going to figure out exactly what it was. I wish I could tell you that I stopped, that I looked James in the eye that night and told him the truth, that I walked away from Ryan before everything collapsed. But I didn't. I kept going. I kept sneaking, kept lying, kept losing myself in the heat of stolen moments, until the day everything fell apart. It started with a text, not from Ryan, from James. "We need to talk. Come home now." My heart stopped. I was in Ryan's arms when I saw it, my breath still ragged from the workout, or from what had just happened against the cold steel of the gym equipment. Guilt flooded me, thick and suffocating. "Minna?" Ryan's voice was smooth, teasing, his fingers tracing lazy circles on my bare skin. "Everything okay?" I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. I have to go." I dressed in a rush, barely hearing Ryan as he tried to calm me down. But deep inside, I knew. This was it. James had found out. I stepped into the house, my stomach in knots. James was sitting on the couch, his hands clasped together, his eyes dark and unreadable. On the coffee table in front of him sat my phone, unlocked and open to my messages. My blood ran cold. "You left your phone at home today," James said, his voice dangerously quiet. I heard it buzzing, and for some reason, I looked. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to lie, to deny everything, to twist the story into something that would make him believe I was still the woman he trusted. But the evidence was right there. Ryan's texts, his words, the ones we never should have sent, the ones that destroyed everything. "How long?" James asked, his jaw clenched so tight I thought he'd crack a tooth. Tears burned behind my eyes. "James, how long?" His voice shook. I swallowed hard. "A few months." He exhaled sharply like I had punched him. Jesus Christ, Mina. The room felt small, suffocating, heavy with the weight of what I'd done. I wanted to reach for him, to beg, but he flinched when I moved. That hurt more than anything. "Was it worth it?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "All of it? The lies? The sneaking around? Was he worth our marriage?" And that's when it hit me. I didn't have an answer, because no matter how much pleasure Ryan gave me, no matter how alive he made me feel, he wasn't James. And I had just lost the only man who ever truly loved me. James didn't yell. He didn't throw things or storm out in a fit of rage. He just looked at me, eyes full of something worse than anger, disappointment, and that broke me more than anything. I need time, he finally said, standing up. Don't talk to me. Don't try to fix this. Just give me time. I nodded, choking back a sob. And just like that, he walked away. I haven't seen Ryan since that night. I stopped going to the gym, stopped answering his texts, stopped everything, because I don't deserve him. I don't deserve anyone. James is still in the house, but we're like strangers now. He doesn't look at me the same way, doesn't touch me, doesn't ask if I regret it, because we both know the answer. I do. I regret everything. But some mistakes, you don't come back from them.